All right, good morning, everyone. It has been a while since I've been up here, but last time I started with a little short personal story, so I'll do the same this time. Recently, there was an incident. Recently, my wife bit off the tip of my finger. I'm kidding. I know she hates that joke, but I'll reveal what really happened. I guess I'll drop that secret. One day, I was making some chocolate lava cakes. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make everyone's mouth water this early in the morning. But while I was chopping up the chocolate bar, I lost focus. There went the tip of my finger. I'd show you which one, but I love you guys too much to show you. I then looked down and said, well, that's not good. Dakota then very calmly freaked out for a little bit. Well, I had to keep pressure on my finger to stop the bleeding. I then proceeded to wrap the finger by myself because Dakota really couldn't handle it. I was a bit freaked out, but I knew I either had to take the issue on hand, no pun intended, or I had to sit there and watch my finger bleed on. Did my finger hurt? Yeah, it hurt a lot. But I had to keep calm and remain calm because there was something that I had to do. I promise I'm not up here trying to show you I'm all manly and I can take a cut finger, because I promise you Dakota did not hear the end of it, of how bad my finger hurt that night. God made us to be able to take these cuts, not to not feel the pain of them. Sometimes those cuts are heartbreaks, addiction, stress. Sometimes they're fear or grief. I could go on and on about the ways that we could and we do hurt. I like to say that you could pull just about anyone off the road, and they would have a story about their life that would just knock you off your feet. That truth goes way beyond a cut finger. Life cuts us in ways that are way deeper than just our skin. Stress cuts us. Fear, grief, betrayal, disappointment, they all cut, and they cut deep. Some wounds just bleed on the outside, but some bleed where no one can see them. Some of you know exactly what I'm feeling like, because you walked in here this morning, you put on your best fake smile while your outside world is crumbling. Trying to hold on, trying to keep pressure on a wound that you feel like it's just about to bleed out. You're trying to stay calm, you're trying to stay faithful. You're trying to keep moving while you're carrying this weight that feels impossibly heavy. Somewhere along that line, us Christians, we tend to believe a lie. You know, if we were strong in faith, this wouldn't hurt. I wouldn't feel like this. I should be stronger than this. But if I acted like my finger didn't hurt that night, would have that made me stronger? No, it probably would have made me look a little dumb, and I more likely would have lost my finger. Pain is a real thing. Ignoring it would not have changed that. In the same way, when life wounds you emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, feeling that pain is not proof that your faith is weak. It's proof that we are human beings. The real question is not whether it hurt or not, because it will. The real question is whether that pain does to you. Does it push you away? Or does it drive you to rely on Him more? Does it make you panic? Or does it remind you where your strength really comes from? Because if we do not understand that, we start confusing with being hurt as being weak. And they are not the same thing. Being hurt is not the same as being spiritually weak. We are allowed to feel these things. God did not create emotionally numb creatures that can't feel love and disappointment. Again, I could go on and on about emotions. We have a long list. So if you pull out your Bibles, I'm about to read out a very long verse. So grab your popcorn. Open up to John chapter 11. John 11, verse 35. Some of you may know where I'm going here. Jesus wept. Our own Lord and Savior felt the very emotions that we have today. Now, to give you guys some context, it's not just a two-letter story. This verse was not dropped into the Bible with no story behind it. If you read on in John 11, Lazarus has died. Mary and Martha are his sisters, and this is a family that Jesus knows and He loves. In fact, John tells us plainly that Martha, her sister, and Lazarus was loved by Jesus. When Lazarus became sick, they sent for Jesus. Now, if you don't know, there wasn't FaceTime or airplanes back then, so by the time that Jesus got there, Lazarus had died. The house that Jesus walked into was full of grief, full of despair. The people around them were mourning. Jesus stepped into the middle of that pain. He saw their tears, He felt the weight of that moment, and He wept with them. It goes on to say twice in the chapter how He was deeply moved. That does not show a lack of emotion on his behalf. It doesn't say, oh, Jesus got a little sad, he comforted the women. No, he was deeply moved and he wept. Translators note that deeply moved can carry the same sense of a stern emotion or a strong agitation. It's not just Jesus being tender. John is not merely saying that Jesus felt bad for the women or he felt a little sad. He is saying that he was powerfully stirred inside. Jesus walked into a room full of distraught and despair. Did he try to be the strong one and go, guys, why are you guys worrying? It's Jesus. Let me do my Jesus thing. Lazarus will be all right. No. He walked in there. He saw wept. He saw distraught and despair, and he sat with them, and he wept with them. You guys can try to tell me that real men don't cry. You can try. If you guys take that passage as Jesus got a little sad, I'm sorry, but you're really missing the mark on how deep that passage cuts. It may be the shortest verse in the Bible, but it should be the most impactful. He was compassionate enough to weep with the ones near him. He wasn't fearful of the loss of Lazarus, but he was related to the grief that death causes us, the wreckage that it causes in our lives, and the sorrow that it brings. He then goes on to rise Lazarus from the dead. It's really a great story. I recommend maybe after this lesson you can go on and read it. But in Psalms 34, verses 15 through 19. Psalms 34, 15 through 19. The eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and his ears are towards their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the memory of them from this earth. When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and he delivers them out of their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. This text is literally saying that we Christians are going to go through many afflictions. And I know I have my definition lovers in here. So an affliction is a state of severe pain, distress, or grief. Maybe something caused by disease, illness, or severe misfortune. This is not some shallow pain or being called a nasty name, which I'm not disregarding, but this is true pain. This is what some of us may call our true living horror. It's promised. But guess what? It also promises that he will deliver us from these. How when we are brokenhearted and we feel like our spirit is completely crushed into the ground, those are the times that he is going to be with us and he is going to lift us out from better than before. He's not promising to cure our diseases in this lifetime or that our trials won't last long. But he's saying that those moments of pain and those moments are not going to have the last moment of our life. We are not the weaker Christians because we feel pain, because our spirit can feel broken sometimes, when sometimes you just hope that your prayers will be answered just a little bit faster. The presence of pain is not the absence of our faith. Pain is real. Pain is something that we are promised. As sucky as that sounds, again, it's one of those things that makes us human. Matthias Steiner, he's a German powerlifter. He was in the 2008 Summer Olympics. While he was preparing, his wife died in a car accident. Before she did, he promised her that he would win a gold medal in that Olympic Games. He then still went on to compete in those games, but he wasn't doing too great. On his second to last attempt, he was in fourth place, and he failed that lift. So he had one last attempt to win. He had to lift 10 more kilograms than he did before, which is about 22 more pounds, for a total of 568.8 pounds. And the lift he was performing is straight up off the ground and above the head. Above the head is insane. I'm sorry. Almost 600 pounds above the head. He had one last attempt to get it, and he got it. What did Matthias do with this grief and pain? Did he let it make him forget the promise he made to his wife? No. He took that pain by the neck, and he used it to fuel him. He felt that pain. On the podium, while he's getting a gold medal wrapped around his neck, he had a picture of his wife, and he's bawling, kissing the picture of his wife. That's not numb strength. That is raw human emotion. And again, you can try to tell me that real men don't cry. I have a little bit of a confession to make in front of this church. I really hate when there's wrinkles in my clothes. And I don't mean, man, that's That's annoying. I mean, I sit there and I look at this wrinkled shirt like it just spit on me. I had an idea of what I was going to wear today, and this shirt ruined it. I have to step back when I think about that. I care that much about how I'm seen, about how something temporary, something small and fixable can steal my peace away like that. It's humbling when I look around here and I see people who leave here and sit beside hospital beds. They're praying for grief, fighting battles with addiction and carrying pain that would truly crumble me. And yet I still let a wrinkle destroy my spirit. The problem is obviously not the wrinkle. The wrinkle just reveals who I am. It reveals how quickly my perspective can shrink when I'm not being led by faith. When my faith is not governing my heart, it reveals how easily I can be put together on the outside, but shallow and weak on the inside. I'm not trying to copy my father, I promise. But that is what truly made me think of these two fruits. We have here the apple. I think a lot of us would rather be like this apple than this peach. It's smooth, it's polished, it's sturdy. I mean, it looks like it can take more. And then there's this peach. It's kind of fuzzy like a preteen. It bruises easily. You look at it too hard, and it bruises. Most of us, if we're being honest, we'd rather look like this apple. But there's something you don't really see when you just look on the outside of these fruits. I promise I'm not going to cut the tip of my finger off. I practiced. But with the apple, cut right through it. It's clean. It's easy. This is a sharp knife, but it's not that sharp. You take this peach. You hit this thing on the inside. I can't really cut through it. Again, it's a sharp knife, but not that sharp. You hit this thing in the center. Let's see if I can get this out. You get this core, this pit, this thing that really doesn't look like much. Some of us spend a lot of time trying to look like that apple. You know, we're smooth, presentable, unbothered, strong at a glance, but sometimes that strength is only skin deep. Sometimes some of us more feel like the peach. We can bruise pretty easily. We can feel a little bit more visibly affected by the world around us. But if we have a core that's still strong in faith, then what looks fragile may be stronger than what's on the outside. Others may bruise easily, but while our faith is built on something strong, our life can't be cut through the center. This is the very picture that Jesus draws for us in Matthew 7, verses 24 and 25. Even then, who hears these words of mine and does them, like a wise man, will build his house on the rock. And then the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. Life is going to expose our core. There are going to be storms, and there are going to be trials that cut us down and deeper than we ever think that we can handle. But we have to set ourselves on stone. We have ourselves in the core that cannot be cut through. Peter supports this very thing in 1 Peter verses 6 and 7. In this you rejoice, through now for a little while. If necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes through it tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and the glory and honor of the revelation of Jesus Christ. These fires are not pointless. These trials are not random. It exposes what is real. It shows whether our faith is only surface deep or whether there's something at the center that still belongs to God. Promise, I'm not up here trying to point fingers at all the apples in the room, because to be quite frank, I often live like that apple. I live at the surface. I care too much about my appearance. I often let it reveal how little pressure it takes to shake me. These troubles don't create our core. They reveal what's already there. The hardest part about suffering is refusing to let outward rot turn into inward rot. It's easy to become angry. It's easy to grow bitter, start blaming God for the very pain that should be drawing us closer to Him. But Scripture gives us men and women who are deeply wounded without letting that poison their heart. Joseph. Joseph is one of the clearest pictures in Scripture of a man who did not let outward pain turn into inward rot. He was not wounded by strangers. He was wounded by his own brothers. Those people that should have protected him were the ones that stripped him of his robe, threw him in a pit, and sold him to slavery. That was only the beginning of his story. Then in Egypt, he tried to live righteously, doing what he thought was right, and for doing so, he was thrown into prison again and forgotten again. Year after year, Joseph had every reason to become bitter, every reason to let betrayal poison his heart. But when you come to the end of his story, Joseph is not standing there a rotted man full of revenge. He's standing there as a man who still sees God. He looks at the very brothers who sold him into slavery and says, "You guys meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Joseph's not excusing the pain and the evil that he's not calling evil good. He named it for what it was. It was evil. It was betrayal. It was suffering that Joseph did not deserve. But he refused to let it do to him and to let it rule inside of him. That may be one of the strongest things that faith has asked us to do. Not just to survive pain, but to survive and not let it turn our hearts sour. Joseph had the power that he could crush every man who crushed him. He would have paid back every year of pain to them. He could have taken his hurt and turned it into vengeance. Instead, he chose mercy. He chose to care for the very people who had wounded him. That's what it looks like when we don't let suffering get to our core. Job is a great example. Read the book of Job, and you'll see a man who lost more than most of us can even imagine. Yet, he refused to let God be with the wrong. Pain is real, but bitterness is not the only possible outcome. Think of the countless programs and places started by people with truly horrific upbringings. Rehab facilities and in foster care homes, providing for the ones that we tend to forget. You can go one of two ways. You can either pass along that pain that you were forced to endure, or you can show people a light. Show people that pain is not the end of the line, and there's something else that they can do in this life. I'm not excusing the pain that those people's parents or ex-loved ones or truly a horrible series of unfortunate events caused them. But it is what we do with that inevitable pain and turn it into something new. Patrick Ridge, he's an ex-musician, business owner, TikToker. He's done it all. He even says he likes to stand out. He had a pretty rough upbringing. He humbly says it's not the worst, but a pretty rough upbringing. He saw an unfaithful mother to his father, a father who cared more about his growing business than he did his own children. And in middle school, he had a bone disease that left him in a full-body cast, where his brother had to come to his classroom and help him to the bathroom. He did turn resentful. He turned into that typical hard rock core teen, where he created a few rock bands, he's drinking, doing drugs, selling other drugs to probably fund the more drinking and doing of drugs. But quite a few of his friends passed, and he was still on the path that he was on. A good close friend of his saw the path he was on and dropped him off at a rehab facility. Imagine, he's 21. Usually the year you're supposed to celebrate your first legal drink, he's having to admit himself into a hospital because he has to admit he can't stop. After a few years of struggling and going through the trials of addiction, I think some of us know a little too well, he got through it. And if you know, addiction is not this, I'm cured. But he was able to turn the corner that some of us can't. He has since opened Graceland Ranch Sober Living. They keep their numbers pretty quiet, so I can't really provide a help number or all these things that they've done for people. But I can say, he's someone who took the worst parts of his life. He took the fire and the pain that he endured, and he lit the light at the end of other people's tunnels to show them there is a way out. He actually may have been more well known if he took that typical rock star route and led to his death. But no, with us in God's hands, he can deliver us from the deepest and darkest of places. This story, it does remind me a bit of Joseph. He felt as if he had nothing left, but he took small steps towards greatness. He didn't make that pain turn into resentment. He took it and decided, you know what? Other people shouldn't have to go through the same thing that I did. Joseph ends that chapter, I'll call back to that. He ends that chapter with telling his brothers not to fear, as he will provide for them and their little ones. The very people who sold him into slavery, he said, you know what? Let me take care of you. He was in a position of Egypt where he could have struck them down, and their children too. It was the Pharaoh, and it was Joseph. So who would have said anything? God, or Pharaoh forbid, who would have stopped him? But what does he do? He welcomes them. He speaks to them kindly. He takes care of them like they never persecuted him. Joseph could have easily turned those years of pain and hatred towards his brothers. But when his brothers came to him to tell him that their father had died, they were worried. They said, oh, father's gone. The reins are let loose now. But Joseph met them with love and care. This life is definitely going to leave its mark on you. You just can't let it hit your core. Sometimes life strips us down to what feels like there's nothing left to regrow. God can bring us from challenges and trials that we can't see the end of with our own eyes. Like I mentioned before, God puts his hands on us before and carries us to those darkest places. In John 12, verses 24, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. This peach put doesn't really look like much sitting up here. It's probably kind of hard to see. It's not really attractive. It's not what anyone really wanted when they grabbed the peach. The flesh is gone. The sweetness is gone. Everything that made it desirable, gone. Yet this is the part that can be planted and grow into something new. Does that sound familiar? Because life has a really good way of stripping away the things that we thought mattered, our image, our appearance, the things that we were so worked up on before, our wrinkles in our shirts, the perfect look, the polished outside. But when suffering gets deep enough and your loved ones get hurt enough, your priorities start to change a little bit. That's where some of us discover that what God can grow with the core is worth more than everything we were trying to protect on the outside. Maybe that's some of us here this morning. Maybe life has stripped some of those things away. It's our comfort, maybe our peace, maybe our confidence. Maybe it's the thing that you wanted everyone else to see or the things that you thought you couldn't live without. And now that it seems left, it's a part of you that feels buried, hidden, and broken. But I promise you, that's not the end. What if the very place that we feel buried is the very place that we can grow into something deeper and better? The thing that looks unimpressive now can be used to bear fruit later. Because the truth is, God has always been in the business of bringing things back from what looked like they were finished. He brings strength out of weakness, hope out of our fear, purpose out of our pain, fruit out of things that look like they were buried. This is why we can't judge the whole story by what's on the surface. It may look bruised, it may look wounded. The outside might look like a total loss. But if faith is still at the center, then God is still working. If we trust is still in him, then this is not our final chapter. That means some of the things that we truly thought were ruining us may actually be where God teaches us to rely on him more deeply than we ever have before. The wrinkles in our shirts don't matter as much when life teaches you what actually lasts eternally. The polished outside doesn't matter as much when God starts doing work on your inside. The things that we once thought start to look smaller and smaller when suffering teaches us what's eternal. So maybe the call this morning is not, God, maybe it looks stronger. Maybe the call is, God, do something inside deeper in me. Strengthen what's at my center. Plant what remains of me. Grow something into me that this world cannot have produced without you. Because when life strips you down to your core, that does not mean God has forgotten about you. It means he's about to grow something deeper and better than that was there before. If I can go all the way back to the beginning of my lesson, that finger, it felt like it was such a big deal. I mean, it was weeks. I had to change how I showered. It was a big part of my life. It's barely noticeable now. My nail even looks the same again. Does that mean it didn't hurt? Does that mean I faked it? No. It means that pain is real, but pain is only temporary. I think God can work that way in a lot of our lives. We get cut, and in the moment it feels like that's the only thing that we can see. Those moments of darkness and pain, it's hard to see the light. It feels like it's going to define everything in our life. But God has a way of bringing us out of those. Maybe that's what some of us need to hear this morning. What you cut is not all you are. What bruised you is not the end of you. When your faith is still rooted in God, He is still able to heal. Still able to restore you, and He's still going to grow something out of what looks like it's nothing at all. So I call to you this morning, if there's something that just feels like there's nothing but a pit left, if life has completely stripped you down from what you thought was yours, the things that you've been holding on so desperately for years was taken from you and smashed in front of you, God is here with you. He is here to plant what remains of you. He hears our prayers. And we feel like we are far too deep for anyone else to relate with us. So please, if you have any need, any prayer, any burden, or step of faith that you'd like to take, please step forward as we sing.